So you're probably wondering, why am I wearing a blazer this episode? And I feel like I'm doing a bit of a tough love intervention from, my alter ego kind of like therapist, even though I'm not really a registered therapist. But I was watching the Michael Chandler interview where he's talking about beating Charles Oliveira 9 times out of 10. And it's just sad in contrast to where Michael Chandler's career started in the UFC with his first win over Dan Hooker, where it just kind of seemed like he had such a bright future ahead of him. And then, he fights for the title and he could have won. And then Charles Oliveira has a comeback moment. So there was room for that what if, right? Goes back, fights Gaethje, wants to put on an entertaining performance. And you know what? He does rather well against Gaethje in the first round, but his fight IQ and his gas tank really failed him. So even if you look at the fights that he lost, potentially, those were very winnable had he just fought with some basic 1-2, really tightened up his striking instead of throwing these overhands. Even Dustin Poirier in that post-fight interview said if he was throwing more straights, he probably could have gotten me out of there, which is true because that just shows Michael Chandler had every tool to succeed and potentially be a threat to Islam Makhachev. But he mismanaged the way he fought. He mismanaged the goals he was going through. And now he's going back, and this Oliveira rematch was supposed to be his last shot to get back into title contention and say, you know what, we're done with the Conor McGregor situation. I got to move forward. But now he's even going back to that, wanting a Conor McGregor fight. The thing that cost him 2 years. And you know what? I understand. He was the better coach on that season of The Ultimate Fighter by far. And, The Ultimate Fighter, it was showing that he's passionate about being a coach. He wants everything to go right. He's really passionate about the game. So we have Conor McGregor, who just showed the opposite, and then he's dipping out of the fight at UFC 303, which I would have loved to have seen, but it was all just kind of a ploy to waste Michael Chandler's time. And now the 2-year off layoff that he had with Oliveira, it showed. It just didn't even seem like he had anything on Oliveira except for that 5th round thing. And even then, it kind of seemed like he was desperate to really finish. Yeah, he put on kind of a show with those slams reminiscent of the first fight with Oliveira, but that they already knew that who was winning that fight. And they're like, let's just give him a show a little bit. So, he tried to go out on a high note, but now he's talking about 9 out of 10 times I beat Oliveira. Dude, you just lost twice. And now he's going back trying to do this Conor McGregor thing. And he really wants that money fight. It's sad because now it's like he's gone from that extreme ownership monicum he came onto the scene with to not taking any ownership for how he's played his cards over his short stint in the UFC. Well, short-ish, because he hasn't fought too often, as often as he wanted to anymore. But it just kind of shows that he's having trouble coming to terms with some harsh realities. And I honestly, why do you think I'm wearing the pseudo-therapist blazer? Because I think, honestly, Chandler's in denial right now, where he's got no right to be. I think, honestly, he should be proud of everything he's done for the UFC at this point. If he were to have just gone on and hang up the gloves and say, look, time's passing me by, I mismanaged my stuff, my timeline, I should have fought a little smarter, because he does want to go for entertaining fights, and these fights are super entertaining. Don't get me wrong. They are super entertaining. But even if he were to square up his game and just work some basic boxing technique, he could still knock people out and still get a lot of highlights on Instagram. And you know what's funny about that is that the UFC fan base still loves to see knockouts happen. They don't have to be over the head suplexes or anything. But if someone gets caught on the button right and goes to sleep, you're not going to tell me that a UFC crowd's not going to go wild. Because it's the gladiator spirit. It really is. So, I don't know. I think sometimes it was like Michael Chandler trying too hard. And now, like, what's he going to do next? He wants the McGregor fight, and that's not going to happen, especially with the predicament Conor McGregor's in. I think a return for Conor McGregor in the octagon is so unlikely, and I say that hoping I'm proven wrong, because I would like to see Conor McGregor come back and redeem himself a little bit. I'm a little, what's the word? Naively optimistic. But at the same time, it's just, what else is there going to be for Michael Chandler at this point? Who does he face? And how is he going to justify a title shot now? Because now you got Oliveira coming in and wanting, and you know, I think Oliveira's earned his bounce back. Yeah, he fell short against Arman Sarukian, and I think that Arman Sarukian beat Oliveira, but he's worked his way back to going to the top of the line now. And honestly, I would like to see Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. I think Islam wins that fight again. Don't get me wrong. That first fight was very convincing that Islam Makhachev is just the kryptonite of Oliveira. But I think what would help Michael Chandler at this point, because I don't want to just criticize him, and because I do want to see him kind of like have a better ending, because the dedication he showed on The Ultimate Fighter, trying to get that Conor McGregor, don't tell me he didn't pay his dues. He more than paid his dues for that fight. But Conor's obviously not going to do it. You know, I'm sorry for Michael Chandler. I know he wants that really big payday, but how many brand deals does he have? How many other fights where he's gotten paid a lot? How much money has he already made? It's like you're so busy chasing, you know, I'm not satisfied with $1 billion. I want to go for $6 billion, right? It just kind of shows that greed, or like always chasing that bigger number, is what's probably getting the better of Michael Chandler, and really it's also causing him some kind of self-destructive thing. And honestly, even if he were to just retire, hang up the gloves and say, you know what, I'm going to go do different brand things and go work on my gym and bring up the next round of fighters, I would be super cool with that, you know? But he's waiting for something else to come along. And like, let's say he even does come back to the UFC, I would like to see him face someone who he could definitely beat, get his hand raised, have a moderate successful end to it, rather than shoot up or try to step into an Islam title shot or something like that right off the bat if one of Islam's opponents come loose. I mean, I would still, if that were to happen, which I doubt it would kind of show me that, you know, at least he's willing to take a little bit of a risk, you know, a risk that's super stacked against him. And I'm not saying never, but like, what's he going to do? Face Oliveira a third time? And then if he loses to Oliveira a third time, what does he say? Like, best of 5? Best of 7? I just don't know. But like, honestly, I think like gratitude and going back to that self-ownership and just coming down to planet Earth, because really my pseudo diagnosis is that Michael Chandler is in denial. I know he could have fought smarter in a lot of his fights. He shouldn't have wasted so much time waiting for the McGregor matchup to happen. But, you know, I think at this point you can't turn back the clock and fix the mistakes, you know, you've made, especially when you've had some really good successes. I'm a huge Tony Ferguson fan. It was hard for me to watch him knock out Tony Ferguson, to be honest, but it was a successful moment in his career, and he should probably be proud of that highlight reel that he's got. Dan Hooker, great debut. But, you know, I think he's overlooking the stuff that he's done right, and he's like focusing on what he doesn't have. And that's hurting him more than it's helping him. But that's what I got to say. That's my take on the whole, you know, spew of where he's at now. And I think he needs to go, you know, do some soul searching and come back to a realistic conclusion to his career. Or, you know, forever hold your peace. And also, by the way, peace out. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.